Hey, good data morning to everybody, and welcome from wherever you are. To let us know, by the way, where are you streaming from? Where are you joining us from? I'm from Vancouver, and Diana here is in.
Romania and Bucharest.
And our dear Scott, where are you from?
Sunny Havre de Grace, Maryland.
Beautiful. And well, sorry, haven't introduced you yet. Today we have a very special guest, of course, Scott Clendaniel, and he is a chief data scientist.
Lead data scientist at Franklin Templeton. There you go.
Exactly. I haven't had my coffee yet. Need to bring that over. But
I understand. Truly, I do. And it's the end of the week, which makes it worse. Yes, I got it.
Well, it's all falling into place because we have a great guest with us, yourself, and it's Friday. I mean, what more can somebody wish for?
Not me. I mean, nothing.
Exactly. So, Diana, would you do the honors?
Absolutely, my pleasure. So Scott began his analytics career way back in 1986. He started with A/B testing marketing, testing on financial services projects through the VP level at Bank of Hawaii. After a personal family emergency, he was forced to surrender his traditional career and started his own consulting firm. There, he had clients including Audi, Booz Allen, IBM, the Los Angeles Times, United Healthcare, and many more. Along the way, he developed a unique approach for machine learning, especially the area of feature engineering. He spends his time now mentoring people in the fields of AI and data science, as well as serving as a lead data scientist for Franklin Templeton, as we mentioned earlier, a financial services company with over $1.4 trillion in assets. His clients and mentees say that he is great at sharing his immense knowledge in ways that make it easy for people to understand. And I can add to everything that he loves animals. So everyone, please welcome Scott.
Yay!
Thank you so much for that very kind introduction.
And we do have people that are joining from all over the place.
Excellent.
We also have Rob Sider. Welcome, Rob. Very nice to have you tuned in. It's quite an honor to have you as a guest here. And
thank you.
We will actually have Rob in a couple of weeks joining us as a guest too.
He's awesome.
Yes, he is.
He is.
And yes, Snejana, we do all need some coffee.
At any time of day.
There you go.
All right. So we're going to talk about really AI, machine learning, and the fact that you are mentoring quite a few people. I know you're raising quite a few profiles here on LinkedIn too, and you're always very helpful and very kind to everybody, and really sharing a lot of good knowledge. So if you haven't followed Scott already, please do right now. Just go on his profile. He'll be happy to connect with you.
Yes, I'm kind of up to my 30,000 limit, but please follow, and I will try and follow that and join. Yeah,
absolutely. And please, just post your questions. And if you're curious, if you want to know where can you start from, what next step you want to take in your career, in your professional career, obviously, please go ahead and ask those questions. But today we're going to talk about AI, machine learning, and of course, Scott, what would you say is the sort of transition? Can somebody just go straight into that field, or they need to go through some steps first? What was your experience on this?
Sure. Well, a point of encouragement for everybody is that my undergraduate was actually in strategic planning, and my MBA was in strategic planning. So I like to tease that the first half of my career, people said there's no way you can do AI machine learning because you don't have a PhD in statistics. The good news is that people don't say that anymore. The bad news is that now everyone tells me I can't do it because I don't have a PhD in computer science, and yet I've stuck it out for 34 years. So there is hope for everybody out there to be able to hang in there. For most people, the world has changed a lot. We've gone from Harvard Business Review in 2012 with their big article about data science is the sexiest career of the next century. And I tried to convince my wife of this several times, and she just kindly shakes. That's nice, dear. But so I haven't convinced her that, that's really the case. But I'm trying. There is definitely hope. Although I will say, there were so many articles about the huge dearth of candidates for data science that so many people have now taken boot camps and certifications and degrees in college. The era of just showing up with a certificate, trying to get in the field, I think is pretty much over.
Yeah.
That window has started to close. And one of the challenges is a lot more companies are looking for people with 2 to 4 years of data science experience, regardless of what your credentials or your certifications are. So it's getting more and more difficult to sort of break into the field. So things are changing.
Absolutely. And speaking of that, what would you say has been some of your biggest challenges or biggest challenge? Let's just try and pinpoint it in the past, or was it like 30, 35 years or so?
Sure. Well, let me start with a big one that seemed to be an issue across the board that no one seems to talk about, and that is cynicism. And let me tell you why. I didn't break into the field directly. I actually started doing analytics within marketing functions in financial services. And back in those days, everyone was almost carpet bombing one another to get credit card customers on board. Your mailbox would just be filled with pre-approved offer for this and pre-approved offer for that. And response rates were really low. So it was like 1.1%. So if we changed a teaser on an envelope and we got 1.3%, we're doing our happy dance. We're like, woohoo, aren't we geniuses? 1.3%. Of course, that still means that, 98% plus weren't responding. So that wasn't a real big contribution. So I was working with a financial services company, and they said, hey, we want to test out some data science, machine learning, AI stuff on your programs, and we can't find anyone in the marketing department to work with us. Would you work with us? And I said, sure, but here's the deal. If that works out, then you have to teach me what you do so that I can learn to do it and be a better partner. And they sat down for about an hour, and they built a very simple logistic regression model. And it went from 1.1% to 6%. And I'm like, 1.3%, 6%, 1.3%. That modeling stuff, can we spend a bit more time on that? Because that seems to be working a lot better than everything that I'm doing over here. So that's how I actually broke into the field. And so it definitely was not a direct path.
Yeah.
And I will also say that for most of the people that I've encountered who are trying to get into the field, which goes back to one of your earlier questions, it tends to be a lot easier to break into the field within your existing company. So the more you can gravitate over towards an IT or analytics role and sort of migrate slowly, that tends to work. You have a much better shot than just trying to jump right into the field. And I would also suggest don't quit your day job. This is not a get-rich-quick opportunity, which for some reason people seem to think is the case. You really have to spend some time at this. You have to have some practice at this. You have to work on practical projects. Please, please, please don't send your resume in with the Iris data set or the Titanic data set. Please don't do that, because everyone is doing that. And people think that you just don't know what you're doing. So avoid that. Instead, find projects to work on where you can sort of migrate yourself either in your current company or volunteer groups, or find a bunch of other folks who haven't had a lot of experience and form a Kaggle team, in that everyone will then get a chance to be able to contribute on something. Better still, find a contest that is for a charity. So for example, there are AI for Good and lots of other programs out there. So what you can do is you can work with other people, you all gain skill. Everything you're doing is work towards a charitable cause.
Yeah, has a great impact.
Benefits.
And another thing that people can do is to follow you or get you as a mentor.
Oh, stop. Yes, I would be happy to do that. Yeah, I really do like it. And here's one of the reasons why. The first time I was ever invited to speak at a conference. I was so excited. I was like, wow, I've been invited. So I run into my coworker's office. And I say, hey, Beth, isn't this fantastic? I just got invited to speak at a data science conference. And I'm expecting, like, hey, that's wonderful. Instead, she folds her arm across her chest. She leans back in her chair. She raises one eyebrow and says, do you really feel qualified at a data science conference? I was like, well, I did until about 30 seconds ago when I came in your office, but yeah, okay. So I promised myself that I would never do that to other folks, which ties back into the cynicism concept. There are so many cynics out there. Don't be one of them. Lend a helping hand. Help others. Let's all learn together. This isn't a zero-sum game. It's not like a limited pie. Let's grow the pie for everybody. Let's help one another advance skills and practices. It's not going to hurt you. It really isn't. Learning and sharing and teaching is the best way to learn anything. So that's why I'm a big believer in those types of efforts.
Scott, you were talking about the changes in AI, and from my point of view, it's a little bit hard to be updated with everything that happens in this field. So my first question is, what are the biggest changes that happen in AI since you've worked in this field or been active in this field? And how do you keep up to date with everything that is happening?
It's a huge challenge. I want to be really clear about that. I think it's impossible to be on top of everything. I will say that you have to sort of pick some areas where you really feel drawn to. And there was a famous business book that came out a while ago called The T-Shape, that talked about the T-Shaped manager, where you have a broad level understanding of lots of different topics, but you have one sort of core thing that you feel really strongly about, that you go deep in terms of that area. For me, the strategy of models and implementation is sort of near and dear to my heart, and feature engineering is near and dear to my heart, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to be able to be on the show, because data is so important and everyone wants to focus on algorithms, and that isn't necessarily where the strength is. So in terms of all the different things that have changed, when I started, everyone used to be on SaaS, not SaaS, software as a service, but SaaS, the programming language. And it was like a religion. And you did SaaS or you didn't do anything. And that was sort of the only thing that was used. When I got into the field, then I started to use, and actually got brought up on GUI-based tools. So you had SaaS Enterprise Monitor, and you had SPSS, and you had Software Systems, and you had Unica, and you had all these GUI-based tools, which was a great way to learn for me because I wasn't a developer and I didn't come into the field as a developer. Things changed hugely when a couple different things happened. One, you had the FANG companies who were truly big data. They had more data than they knew what to do with. Two, it was just too expensive to continue to have individual licenses for every data science. Therefore, the opening to open source and the rise of Python and R and those type of languages, because the companies couldn't afford the individual licenses. So that was sort of the next big shift. The third big shift is kind of concerning me in that there's sort of a pendulum, I believe, in terms of understanding and belief in data science. It used to be you'd go to a company and you say, you can do so many amazing things with your analytics. And I'm like, analytics? Oh, that's so boring and it sounds hard and it's dull and I don't want to be involved in that. And then the complaints just went on and on and on. Please don't make me do analytics. And then suddenly in the past 8 years, it's like artificial intelligence this and artificial intelligence that. And I have a brand new lawnmower to sell you and it uses artificial intelligence. I don't know how that works, but okay. And, people on the resume. So I use Excel, so I must be using artificial intelligence, right? I'm like, what happened to the middle stage where, it was sort of like there's certain problems you can solve, certain problems you can't solve. Let's focus on the ones that we can solve. So that third swing really concerns me because Gartner's reporting that 85% of all machine learning models never make it to production. And I don't know how many fields of endeavor can continue to be successful with a 15% success rate. I mean, that doesn't sound good to me. So in terms of the changes, my big fear is the next change, which may be companies spend a lot of money, they invest a lot of time, and they're not getting the returns back that they were promised. And so people tend not to say, oh, gee, we picked the wrong project, or this particular effort didn't work out. They tend to resort to, see, I told you this AI thing was a bunch of hooey and there's nothing to it, and therefore we're not going to do this anymore, fire the whole department.
And Scott, what would you say from your experience then, why so many don't go into production? Is it just because they don't have all the variable in place, the data isn't there to support it properly? Is it just the initial question that isn't asked properly either?
The honest answer is we're not doing our jobs as data scientists. And I say that broadly. Specifically, there's a dirty secret about working with data, which you guys know all too well. And that is that data science really isn't about data, it's about people. And I know that sounds really cheesy, but you have people with an organizational issue that has to be solved. You have to communicate with those people. You can't go run back into your office and produce Python script for 6 months and then come back and go, ta-da! Because what tends to happen is we don't even have that problem anymore. You use the wrong data set. Oh, we've changed in terms of what the target we're trying to optimize is. All kinds of things happen. You really have to make it a collaborative process. I went to a huge data science conference last year, who will remain nameless to protect guilt or innocence. And I went in there and there was a session, we had 250 people in the audience. And I was one of them. And so the presenter says, okay, how many of you, when you started your project, asked what the financial impact of what you're working on is going to be before you started the project? 4 hands went up out of 250 people, mine was one. The next question was, well, what's the backup plan? You know, how many of you asked what the backup plan if the model doesn't go into place? How many of you asked that? 3 hands go up, mine was one of them. Out of 250 people. Folks, we're not doing our jobs. We're not making sure that we understand the business issue. We're not making sure that we're coming up with something to solve people's problems. We really need to work on how we approach projects on the front end instead of trying to ram them into place on the back end. Silly example, in fraud detection, when I worked with PayPal, you have somebody typing on a screen, they go to press enter, and PayPal wanted to offer a credit product. All right, so from the microsecond that the person hits enter on that response box, you have to take the data, bring it into the data center, do all the variable transformations, apply the model, make fraud, no fraud, credit, no credit, pass decisions, and have the result back on the screen in sub-second timeframes. All right, that's a really narrow amount of time, especially when you think about latency. Yeah. All right, great. You can't start the project and say, I know the answer for this. I'm going to use a 600-layer deep learning neural network, because by the time it finishes, it'll be next Tuesday. You've got sub-second time frame, so you've got to be able to say, all right, what's the real problem I'm trying to solve? What are the restrictions of my problem? And then what solution is going to fit in that solution space? You have to be a collaborative partner to figure out how you're going to meet people's needs.
And Scott, you know, I think that's beautifully said, and that's why companies need a chief data scientist like yourself. And one of the things that I've
that's
noticed,
what no, I'm just kidding.
One of the things that I've noticed along the lines that you mentioned at other companies, really their data science, data analytics department, whatever it is called, that's one of the things that they're lacking. It's not really the skills that internal, the talent that they all possess, but it's really they don't really understand the side of the business that they are trying to support through their machine learning, through their AI projects. And that's really what's missing a lot of times.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think you're dead on.
I wanna just take a little pause and answer a few questions. There's tons really coming in, and we might have to go back to some of the items that you did mention already.
Okay.
But we do have a question here from, where are you? All right. Hold on. They keep scrolling down on me.
I hate when that happens.
Andrew here is asking, what would be an entry-level job in data engineering? I'm thinking recent graduates. We have both technical and business grads.
What would be an entry-level job in data engineering? Oh, I think a lot of it would be sort of a training or an intern role is probably the best, both for the organization to sort of learn how to manage a data engineering person, and also for the employee to sort of learn to skill. The data engineering tasks are a lot of having to do things like what used to be ETL and now is data ingestion. Boy, what a terrible phrase. Data ingestion just sounds yucky, but however you want to call that, you know, some basic SQL skills, some query skills, some ability to be able to come up with how you standardize a data set, how you're going to handle null values, missing values, those types of things. So an entry-level piece is going to be look at a data set, see if it makes sense. Side tip for you, check to make sure that the number of columns in your data set in a given row is the same number as the number of columns in your header. You would be shocked to find out how many people try and use a CSV and still have a missing comma, screw up the entire project because they end up with the wrong number of columns in the file. And they're like, gee, I asked which city they lived in, and the answer was 24. That doesn't seem to make sense to me. So you have to have those sort of skills to be able to manipulate the data and also sort of say, you know, does the common sense test pass here or not?
Absolutely. I was doing an online lesson last night on data profiling, and I was importing this data set. I thought everything was all right. And then when I was scanning it, when I was seeing the results, everything just didn't make sense. And it was because of that one comma that really screwed up all the alignments.
And it happens a lot. And people like to focus on, hey, I'm going to use a convolutional neural network combined with an LSTM framework. I don't even know what that means, but it sounds cool. So that's what I want to use. Are we sure we have the right number of columns? Is the data count correct? You know, do we have a dependent variable? You know, those little things really help.
And we have a few people, such as Susan, that says, hello. Hi, Susan.
Hello, Susan.
And Ayush. And Vikas. And of
Good
course,
to see you too.
Tom.
Dr. T.
Great to see you, Tom, here. And we're going to take another question from Jagadish. Sure. He's asking really that he is from mechanical engineering. He wants to shift to data science field. What are some of the initial steps that he could take?
Wow, mechanical engineering, that is no joke, man. The technical skills that you have for mechanical engineering are going to be incredibly helpful. The problem-solving approaches are going to be really helpful. I'm going to suggest that in any of the projects you work on now, what are the data aspects of those that you're using for current situations? How closely are you working with IT? If you're not working with IT, start working with IT. Definitely participate in projects like Kaggle Online to be able to figure out what the best solution to a problem is. That's a good way to sort of form some basic skills. I am all for online courses. You don't have to spend an arm and a leg to be able to get some basic skills together. There's tons of free stuff out there. Make sure you're listening to this podcast because George and Deanna have lots of wonderful guests who can help you outside of me, but you know. Those are some of the things. Also, toward data science is a great way. You don't have to understand all the articles. You really don't. But if they're talking about a certain type of neural network, you might want to say, hey, I wonder what that is. Let's figure that out. Participate on LinkedIn. I've learned a ton from very bright people on LinkedIn.
Oh, yeah.
So those are a bunch of quick steps that are sort of low and no cost.
So then if someone wants to find a job in data science, what are the recruiters looking for?
Okay, it's time to have a truth session among our dear friends here on the podcast. Yes. Because I hear a lot of people, especially in the early part of their career, say, but I could do this job. The recruiter just doesn't understand. Okay. The recruiter understands perfectly well. Or the applicant tracking system doesn't like me. It doesn't like anybody. Okay, we're all in the same situation. If you're a recruiter, This is what your typical day is like. Someone calls you in a hurry and says, I need to find somebody to do X, Y, and Z. And you're like, okay, create a job description. The person doesn't want to create a job description, so they dump it on HR. So HR is stuck. So they go and they look out and look for similar jobs on the web. And they create a job description, which may or may not have a whole lot to do with the actual job they're filling. All right. You have to be in the mindset of the hiring manager and the recruiter. And the primary mindset is not what you think. It's based on fear. And what I mean by that is they don't want to bring somebody into the job and have it not work out and be yelled at by the hiring manager or the hiring manager's boss. So the reason why so many folks are doing things that don't seem to necessarily make a whole lot of sense to you is the fact that they're living in mortal fear, and they're trying to find someone who, yes, meets the needs, but most of all, they're trying to find someone who won't get them in trouble. So what they really want is somebody who's done the exact same job that they want to do, exactly, down to the letter, for 10 years at their number one competitor who will take the job for $20,000 less. All right, that's what they're looking for. They're not looking for someone who can learn. Everyone says they can learn, and most people can. I think most of what, if it were all that hard, I couldn't make a living at it. There are a lot of things that can be learned, but the HR manager and the hiring manager are in a really bad space, and they don't want to get in trouble. That's what most of their motivation is based on. You have to be in that mindset, or you're not going to be successful getting your foot in the door.
Absolutely.
That is super helpful, and I think it's helpful for every single job interview and domain or field that you want to apply for. And thank you for that. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Definitely great advice, as Susan is mentioning. Now, would you say, though, there might be, who shouldn't pursue a career in data?
Number one, if you're pursuing the career and it's only for salary, two things. Number one, I don't think that's going to be sustaining long-term to your motivation. So be aware of that. Number two, if that really is your motivation, you can probably make just as much money, if not more, faster as a developer for one of the FANG companies. Total compensation in the San Francisco area, total comp, not base comp, not just salary, for a first year person averages about $186,000. Now, there's a lot of stock in there, there's bonus in there, there are other things, but that's a lot of money. So if it's just money, there are other ways that you can go down a similar path. You will have an easier pathway. There are more jobs, there's less, so the competition on a percentage basis is lower. Three, if you don't like learning and spend a lot of time learning outside the job, this is not the career for you, because everything you know now will be different from 5 years from now. I guarantee it. So it has to be sort of a continuous learning, reading blogs, that type of thing. If you don't like that, I get it, but pick a different field, because this isn't your thing. If you're a really outdoorsy type, yeah, you're going to be spending a lot of time in front of that monitor. So that's not a good option for you. Also, what has changed in terms of job skills is I did not come at this field from a developer background, and the world has really changed. There's a huge focus on taking developer exams online and being able to solve equations and being able to code functions and all kind of stuff. If you don't like that, it's going to be tough to get in the door.
Absolutely.
And I have one last question, George, if I may. We're already on, I think we have 1 minute left. What is...
Gosh darn, he talks too much. Sorry.
No, that's great. It was amazing what you shared. I'm just curious, what is your biggest motivation, or where do your biggest satisfactions come from in what you do?
The biggest satisfaction for me actually comes from helping other people, as cheesy as that sounds. I did a free training at Legg Mason for everyone in the organization on introduction to AI and ML. And we opened it to everyone in the organization. 150 people came to all 4 sessions. And an administrative assistant who attended the thing, I was able to mentor her a bit, and she was able to change her career to a risk analyst in under a year. It's those types of victories that to me are a heck of a lot more interesting than increasing, AUC by 0.5%.
Scott, you know, I've been following you for a while. We've been connecting for a while now, and I'm more than impressed, I have to say. And I do recommend
thank you.
to try and poach you, because you'll be a great chief data scientist for anybody.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
So thank you so much for really coming on the show. I'm sorry that we couldn't get to everybody. There are a lot of hellos and great questions here that I'm going to put up really quickly. And hi, David. Very nice to see you.
Hey, David.
And it's clear that you do have a lot of fans and a lot of people that you have mentored that have showed up. And obviously, there's many more to join your tutorship, if you will, your mentorship.
Please visit my LinkedIn profile. It makes me happy.
Any parting words? What do you think? AI is out here to get us?
The director of AI at Stanford came up with the best line on this, so I'm going to completely steal her quote, which is, we're a lot closer to smart washing machines than we are for robots taking over the world. And I think that's very apt. I think we should be aware and be careful with AI, but trust me, the movies make it look a heck of a lot more exciting than what I'm working on.
Right. All right. Well, that's a positive note to end on. So thank you again for joining, and good data morning to everybody wherever you are, regardless of the day it is.
Thank you very much for being here, everyone, and for your comments. Thank you, Scott. It was lovely to have you here.
Thank you both so much. Take care now.
You too. Bye.
Bye.